In the beginning, I had an honorable group of members who had some of them disgruntled. Now, they don't only appreciate, but they show a lot of eagerness to work with us to come out of the challenges. I'm therefore overwhelmed with happiness. But I would also want, before I stop talking, to give you honorable members an experience I have. Last year, at the beginning of last year, I led a group from Nira and went to Kenya to benchmark. And we spent a whole week in Kenya. Some of the things, among others, which we discovered have been mentioned. Like, for example, a staff of 4,000 vis-a-vis our less than 500. I looked at the building in which they were conducted births and deaths, which is separate from where they do registration. It was bigger and higher than Crested Towers. Wow. And we were told, we went to the equivalent of LC1s, where we were told that at LC1 level, every Monday, they conduct a baraza. The LC1 calls all members of the LC1, which is, I think, equivalent of a village. And some of the things they discuss include births. We discovered something, that for every Kenyan, any Kenyan who dies can never get buried unless you have a burial permit. And that burial permit is related invariably to your birth certificate. Without a birth certificate, you can never get a burial permit. And without a burial permit, you will never be buried in Kenya. Now, I discovered something very interesting. Those areas which neighbor us, maybe Busi and the neighboring areas, if there are people who die there who are not Kenyans and therefore don't have burial permits, they ferry them to Uganda. And they give our people who may have kibanja or what, a few pennies, and they buy where to bury their own people. I discovered that it even gets worse. For those who have money and they die in Kenya and don't have burial permits, the people ship their bodies here to Entebbe and negotiate informally with burial, they call them these bodies, that funeral homes, and they make business to bury non-Ugandans in Uganda here. So you can see. And Kenya has been registering Kenyans for the last 27 years. And they are not yet done. For us, we started in 2014. We have now 17.2 millions not in our system. We may have a lot of challenges, but I think we are doing a bit of a good work. And if you appreciate us, like I can see happening now, we pledge to do better. We cannot say we shall be perfect, But with your guidance and your support, we shall definitely do better.
We got to know when we were on the benchmarking exercise that in order to get buried in Kenya, you needed a burial permit. And to get a burial permit, you needed to have a birth certificate. And that those who did not have a burial permit would not be buried in Kenya. And that responsibility was at the grassroots level. So we were told that what happens for those people who don't have burial permits in areas especially bordering Uganda, the people responsible for them would find it much easier to go to Uganda and dispose of their dead bodies by buying small portions of land where they would buy their people for small amounts of money, since after all, they did not need any death permits to bury them. And this was also, it was also mentioned to us that in some instances whereby people had money, their bodies would be flown into Uganda and they would deal informally with burial, they call them what? Funeral homes, and have the bodies disposed of, since after all, there was nobody to stop them from doing that. So the best would be to ensure that that Nira is facilitated to that level, to the extent that we carry on one registration of all those that are not registered. We have already indicated to you that we have around 17.2 million Ugandans who need to be registered and have national identification numbers. After that is done, we are in the process of making sure that births, deaths, adoption orders, and even marriages hitherto at the Uganda Registration Bureau are all brought into Nira, and we do it to the extent that there will no longer, definitely, if there is a link between your birth. Today we have already started an exercise where on birth in all health centers, it is a requirement that after a birth, there is a notification to the Nira office, and a NIN is generated